Today, we're unraveling one of Germany's oldest and most unsettling unsolved cases, a brutal mass murder that took place on an isolated farm in 1922. 6 lives were taken in a series of calculated, brutal attacks. To this day, no one knows for sure who was responsible or why the killer chose to stay at the scene of the crime for days afterward. This is the chilling mystery of the Hinterkaifeck murders. What secrets did this family keep, and why did no one see the killer come or go? Our story takes place at Hinterkaifeck, a small, secluded farmstead in Bavaria, Germany. It's 1922, and life here is harsh and lonely. Hinterkaifeck was home to the Gruber family, who led a reclusive life. The family's patriarch, Andreas Gruber, was a 63-year-old farmer known for his strict, even tyrannical demeanor. His wife, Cecilia, was 72, equally tough and quiet. They lived with their 35-year-old daughter, Victoria Gabriel, a widow whose husband, Karl Gabriel, had died in World War I. Victoria had 2 children, 7-year-old Cecilia, named after her grandmother, and 2-year-old Joseph. Joseph's father remains unknown, though some speculate it could be their neighbor, Lorenz Schlittenbauer. Lorenz, however, denied being the boy's father. The family had just hired a new maid, Maria Baumgartner, who started her job on March 31, 1922. That day would tragically be her last. There are rumors about Victoria's husband, Karl. Although he was reported to have died in World War I, some locals claim to have seen him after the war, fueling endless speculation about his fate. This story of a husband possibly returning from the dead would become just one piece in the web of mystery surrounding the Gruber family. In the weeks leading up to the murders, strange things began happening at Hinterkaifeck. The family's previous maid had quit just months earlier, claiming the farmhouse was haunted. She told police that she had heard voices, footsteps, and had even seen shadows. She believed someone or something had been living in the house undetected. Andreas Gruber himself reported hearing footsteps in the attic at night, as if someone were moving around above them. He searched the attic but found no one. One morning, Andreas Gruber discovered a single set of footprints in the snow, leading from the nearby forest directly toward the farmhouse. These footprints were particularly alarming because there were no tracks showing anyone leaving the property, suggesting that whoever made them might still be nearby, potentially hiding on or around the premises. Given the secluded location of the Hinterkaifeck farm, surrounded by dense woods and open fields, any footprints in the snow stood out as unnatural and suspicious. Yet, despite the unsettling nature of this discovery, Andreas reportedly did not alert anyone beyond his immediate family. Shortly afterward, a key went missing. The Gruber family was meticulous about their few possessions, so the loss of this key was particularly troubling. The family found an unfamiliar newspaper inside the house, and none of the family members recognized it or admitted to purchasing it, leading them to question how it had ended up in their home. This newspaper was later identified as an issue from Munich, a city some distance away from the Grubers' rural Bavarian farmhouse. This discovery raised suspicions, as the family did not subscribe to out-of-town papers, nor had they received any visitors recently who might have brought it along. Andreas Gruber, increasingly concerned by the strange incidents, eventually asked the local postman about the newspaper, hoping it might have been mistakenly delivered or accidentally brought to their property. The postman, however, confirmed that he hadn't delivered it, nor had he seen it during his regular mail drops. This response deepened the mystery, as it suggested that the newspaper hadn't come through any ordinary means. Given the other strange occurrences, the footprints in the snow, the missing key, and now this unexplained newspaper, Andreas and his family began to feel that someone might be trespassing on their property or watching them closely. However, Andreas reportedly still viewed these incidents as unusual but not serious enough to report formally, possibly believing they would pass as isolated oddities. Tragically, these signs of an intruder were early warnings of the horrific events to come. Footsteps, missing keys, strange noises in the attic. Was it just paranoia, or was someone truly lurking in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike? On April 4th, 1922, after no one had seen the Gruber family for days, a neighbor, Lorenz Schlittenbauer, led a group to the farm to check on them. Various visitors, including a coffee merchant, hunters, and a machine repairman, had come to Hinterkaifeck but had been unable to get a response from the family. The group approached the farm, finding it eerily silent. Inside the barn, they uncovered a horrific sight. The bodies of Andreas, his wife Cecilia, Victoria, and young Cecilia, stacked and partially covered with hay. Each of them had been brutally bludgeoned with a mattock, a tool similar to a pickaxe. Victoria's daughter, young Cecilia, was found clutching her own hair, which she had torn out in agony, suggesting she may have survived for hours after the attack. Inside the farmhouse, the group discovered the bodies of Maria, the maid, and little Joseph. Both had been killed in their beds. This brutal attack spared no one, not even the children or the maid who had just started that very day. The killer's approach was cold and calculated. It's believed they lured each family member to the barn one by one, ambushing and murdering them as they arrived. Afterward, the killer entered the house and killed the maid and 2-year-old Joseph, who were asleep in their beds. But what's even more disturbing is what happened after the murders. Neighbors saw smoke rising from the farmhouse chimney, and investigators found food had been eaten from the kitchen. The animals had been fed, and even the family dog had been cared for. What kind of person would stay on the property, living among the dead? Was this an attempt to erase guilt, or a twisted need to inhabit the lives he had just destroyed? The Hinterkaifeck farmhouse layout played a crucial role in the murders, as it allowed the killer to move undetected and lure family members to the barn, where most of the killings occurred. This rural Bavarian structure had living quarters directly connected to the barn, enabling easy access. Key areas. Inside the house, the barn. The barn, attached to the house, served as the primary murder site. The killer may have hidden there, accessing the main house undetected. Despite the brutal scene, animals remained fed, suggesting the killer possibly stayed on the property. Kitchen and living area inside. The kitchen was a communal space with a large stove and dining table where food appeared to have been eaten after the murders. The modest living area connected to other rooms, serving as a gathering space for the family. Bedrooms. Basic and private, each family member had a separate room. Victoria's room was near her parents' room, and she shared it with her son, Joseph. The maid, Maria, was found dead in her own room, covered with a sheet. Attic. The attic, significant due to reported footsteps, possibly provided a hiding spot for the killer. Small windows allowed a view of the property, which could have let the killer observe the family. Children's room and hallways. Young Cecilia's room was simple, shared with her mother and brother. Small hallways connected the farmhouse rooms, aiding the killer's movement without detection. Investigators believed the killer lured family members to the barn one by one before returning to the house to kill Maria and Joseph. The farmhouse's narrow, connected layout allowed the killer to move freely and possibly stay on site for days. When police arrived, they faced a scene that would haunt them forever. Despite the brutality, valuables and cash were untouched, ruling out robbery as a motive. Investigators questioned neighbors and friends, piecing together what they could from local rumors and accounts. This led to a list of possible suspects. Suspect list. Lorenz Schlittenbauer, the neighbor with a complicated relationship. Lorenz led the group of neighbors who discovered the bodies and, according to witnesses, acted strangely at the crime scene. While others were shocked by the gruesome sight, Lorenz reportedly moved around calmly, unlocking doors and disturbing evidence in ways that seemed unnatural. He claimed he had keys to the farmhouse, which was odd since one of the Gruber family's own keys had recently gone missing. Karl Gabriel, Victoria's deceased husband, or was he? Victoria's husband, Karl Gabriel, was reported to have died in 1914 while serving in World War I. However, rumors circulated that Karl had survived the war and returned home, perhaps learning of Victoria's new life and relationship with Lorenz. Some locals claim to have seen Karl in the years following the war, adding to the theory that he returned to Hinterkaifeck seeking revenge. Brothers Anton and Karl Bickler, farm laborers with a grudge. Anton and Karl Bickler were brothers who had previously worked as farmhands at Hinterkaifeck. Both had criminal backgrounds, with records of theft and violent behavior, making them natural suspects. Andreas reportedly had a difficult relationship with them, and the Bickler brothers were known to resent his strict control over the farm. Unfortunately, the investigation was riddled with mistakes. Neighbors trampled through the scene before police arrived, contaminating vital evidence. Later searches uncovered bones and other potential clues, but by then, too much time had passed, and no solid leads emerged. The Hinterkaifeck murders remain one of Germany's most enduring mysteries. In the 1980s, German police reviewed the case with modern profiling techniques and reportedly narrowed down a suspect. However, out of respect for surviving relatives, they chose not to release the name, as all involved had already passed away. In 2007, students at a German police academy also reviewed the case, analyzing the evidence with the latest tools, but they reached no definitive conclusion, leaving the case as cold as ever. Could this case ever be solved, or has too much time passed? What clues, if any, might still be out there? One of the most chilling aspects of this case is the psychological question it raises. The fact that the killer tended to the animals and lived in the farmhouse for days after the murders suggests a twisted mind, someone who was as comfortable in the Grubers' home as they were alive. Was it guilt or something darker? Today, the farmhouse is gone, but a memorial stands in its place. It serves as a reminder of the lives taken in an act of brutal violence that has yet to be explained, captivating true crime enthusiasts around the world. If this case captivated you as much as it has fascinated investigators for nearly a century, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and like this video. I'll be back with more dark, disturbing, and thought-provoking cases. Join me on this journey into the mysteries of the human mind and the world's most shocking cases. This is Ubaid, your introverted investigator, signing off for today. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next.